Kids and cadets, welcome back to Tommy Time. I'm working on this Poulan Pro, the PP421A, Papa 4218 Alpha. It's a 42cc engine with an 18-inch cutting bar and chain. So a co-worker wanted me to look at this. He said it had been sitting in his shed for quite some time. When I opened the fuel cap here and smelled the fuel was a couple years old, very stale. I dumped that out, put fresh fuel in it. I was able to start it, but it was running terribly. I went to take the carb off and clean the carb, and all the fuel lines crumbled in my hand, so I went ahead and changed out fuel lines. What we're going to discuss today is fuel line routing on this Poulan Pro. I've watched a couple videos. I followed one guy's example, and it actually was pushing the fuel backwards, so I just want to save you guys some frustration so you don't have to tear this thing down twice to do the job. I'll try to explain it. I've already put it back together, nearly back together. I was going to go ahead and start. I figured, well, why not show the kids and cadets the routing of these fuel lines in case they have one of these Poulan Pros. So let me see if I can pull this bulb out. I think I can. It might be helpful to show you the back side, or I can just explain it to you, because I have a primer bulb here. I've got a 10-pack of these and a 10-pack of the inline tank filters. So your main pickup line is on this side of the carburetor, and it's down below. That line actually goes down into the tank, and your filter will be attached to that line. It comes up through the case down in this area. That line actually comes to this side to a brass elbow right here. This is your intake on this side, the blade side of the saw. So your intake with the fuel filter on the inside of the tank comes up through the bottom of the case here. Right side of the carburetor, there's a brass elbow that goes in there. So that kind of sits at the bottom. That brass elbow sits at the bottom of the carburetor. You come over to this side. There's another brass nipple right there. You can see it. That's at the top side, and it's at the pull starter side of the carburetor. That comes down into your primer bulb, and that's actually the smaller intake stem. You have a smaller intake here and then a longer. I'll show you on a brand new one. Here's your bulb. You'll see you have a long stem there and then a short one next to it. The routing is important. You can't mix these things backwards. It'll force the gas to go in the opposite direction. So top of the carb, that brass nipple short line down to the short side of your primer bulb, this short side. This longer side, you see how it's longer than this side. That longer port, that this tube is a little bit longer and it goes way back to the back of the engine right here, and it goes into that hole in the tank right there. That's your return line. When you're purging the system, the fuel's going to end up going through this longer hose and then back into the tank. There's just a short piece of hose that goes into the tank, and then it just dumps the fuel back in. There's no strainer on that side. That's just your return line. Line's very small. So, top of the carb here, short line to the little nipple, long nipple, longer hose, goes all the way to the back and goes into the bottom of the unit right there. The hose up here on the bottom of the carburetor, that's your pickup line. You'll have your filter attached to that. Hopefully that helps you out with your routing on this Poulan Pro 42cc. Put it all together, realized that the guy had it mixed up when he gave the video. No hard feelings. The other issue is back here I didn't keep my cable tucked against this plastic, and it ended up getting caught up down here and jamming my throttle cable. So I did a JB Weld AB compound fix on this little plastic lever. These must break off because all the new aftermarket carburetors, this is metal. So like I said in the first video, I barely touched this thing and it popped off the brass stem there. So it works something like this: hit the throttle and it opens up this secondary wafer. That brass wafer at the top, that's what that plastic arm operates. So if you go to buy one of these now, they don't even use the plastic. It's a metal, piece of metal there. So like I said, this thing's seen very little use. Chain was still sharp. He probably only used it a couple of times and let it sit for a couple years. Bad fuel. So that goes to show these lines that they're coming with. If you use an ethanol fuel, it's just going to dry these out and crack them in two. That's why everybody's throwing these saws in the trash and the weed eaters. The stuff ends up crumbling. It's just cheaper for people to go and get an $89 weed whacker or cheap chainsaw from Home Depot. I don't know what these go for. They're probably more money than a cheaper rated machine. Anyway, so I'm gonna put this thing back together. Hopefully it starts so I can give it back to my co-worker. He said he had some trees to cut, so hopefully I can put him to work with his projects and I can go on to something else. Hopefully that helps you guys with your routing. You can buy a whole carburetor kit. You'll get fuel line for the job. You'll get a primer bulb, a filter, fuel filter. You'll also get a new air filter, which I have here. They'll give you the element here, the air filter element, for about 20 bucks. So if you find one of these in the trash, you spend a little time, put another carb on it with new fuel lines, you'll be good to go. You can also buy a kit, which I did, with this Tygon fuel line. This is more than one kit. You can buy 4 pieces of this stuff for 1 meter long, which is nearly 3 feet. So this will give you a couple of projects, and they give you different sizes. They'll give you a big diameter hose, they'll work it down, and then they'll give you the tiniest diameter. They pick the 4 most common size fuel lines, and you spend $3 or $4 and they'll give you this little kit. If you know your size, you can buy as much of this single size as you want from different sellers. I always go with the variety pack, because all these 2-cycle machines are different in what their size requirements are for the fuel line. So there you go. Mr. Snake and I are going to tackle another job. It's mid-afternoon. We still can do a couple of projects here before the sun goes down. Like I said, I'm going to try to wrap this project up right now. Kind of dragged my feet on it. Some other things came up. Had some people came out and look at mowers. I've had a couple of sales today. Scrapper showed up with a couple of units. I had to deal with him, and my brother came over. I visited with him. He helped me drag a mower out of my to-do pile so I could start another project tomorrow. So busy day here at Tommy Time. I hope you're all doing well. I appreciate all my new subscribers. I don't know why you're showing up to look at all this junk that I'm fixing, but I really appreciate it. And as always, tip your waitress and wait staff. They do an awesome job. They really appreciate your generosity. The Green Lady and I are going to have a brief discussion here when I send you guys on your merry way. We're going to discuss what project we should start. You always got to consult. You always got to consult with the Green Lady. She seems to know what she's doing. Anywho, appreciate it. Have a good day today. Thanks for coming out.